When a seasoned white cop wrongly accuses a respected black judge of stealing her own car, what follows shatters assumptions and challenges a whole city's sense of justice. These are stories I have personally witnessed, with the names of the individuals changed to protect their identities. Before we begin, let me ask, what time is it where you are, and where in the world are you watching from? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. On a quiet evening in Charleston, South Carolina, Officer David Harper was nearing the end of a long shift, his mind already drifting toward home when a sleek black sedan caught his attention. Rolling hesitantly through a stop sign, something about the car's slow movement and lack of visible plates made him uneasy. With practiced hands, he flicked on his lights and prepared for what he expected to be a routine stop. But as he approached the driver's side, he was met not with nervous fumbling or evasive glances, but with a calm, steady gaze that belonged to a woman who carried herself with undeniable dignity. Her silver hair framed a face marked by years of wisdom and resilience. She wore a judicial robe, not the kind one sees in court, but one that commands respect nonetheless. "Evening, officer," she said with quiet authority. "I'm Judge Evelyn Carter. This is my car, and I'm heading home after a day in court." David's eyes narrowed in disbelief. This wasn't what he expected, and yet his training kicked in as he requested license and registration. Evelyn handed over her documents smoothly, like she had done countless times before. But despite the papers checking out, a lingering suspicion gnawed at David, fueled by a report of a stolen vehicle matching this car's description. He radioed dispatch, waiting anxiously for confirmation, his gaze never leaving her. Evelyn, seated patiently, never wavered or showed any sign of discomfort. The darkness deepened around them, mirroring the tension that thickened the air between a man bound by duty and a woman embodying justice. Neither spoke, yet the silent weight of that moment spoke volumes. It was the beginning of a confrontation that would challenge assumptions, reveal uncomfortable truths, and test the strength of dignity under pressure. As the minutes stretched on, the fading light cast long shadows over the quiet neighborhood of Charleston, where Evelyn Carter sat calmly behind the wheel of her car, the soft rustle of leaves barely audible over the steady hum of the street. Officer David Harper paced near his cruiser, radio in hand, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily on him. The dispatch officer's voice crackled through the speaker, confirming that no stolen vehicle matched the VIN or license plate of the sleek black sedan in front of him. Yet David struggled to reconcile the facts with the gut feeling that had driven him to initiate the stop in the first place. The crowd began to gather, neighbors emerging from porches, teenagers clutching their phones, faces filled with curiosity and concern, silent witnesses to a moment that was quickly becoming more than just a traffic stop. Evelyn maintained her composure, her eyes steady, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, silently reminding herself of the countless hours spent adjudicating disputes and upholding the law. Yet here she was, being questioned, doubted and detained by a man who refused to see beyond his own suspicions. David stepped forward again, his voice low but firm as he asked her to step out of the vehicle. Evelyn's response was measured, sharp, and unwavering. "Is that a lawful order?" The question hung in the air, charged with the unspoken tension between authority and rights. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, some urging David to reconsider, others watching in stunned silence. Phones were raised, recording every word, every gesture, the digital age turning bystanders into guardians of justice. Evelyn's voice rose just enough to cut through the noise, asserting her identity clearly and calmly. "I am Judge Evelyn Carter of the 5th Judicial Circuit. You are unlawfully detaining me." The words reverberated beyond the quiet street, echoing in the hearts of those who had faced similar doubts and denials. David's stance wavered, pride battling the mounting pressure from both the crowd and his own conscience. He glanced toward the growing assembly, aware of the cameras, the rising tension, and the risk that his actions might soon become public. Evelyn's resolve did not falter. Her eyes met his, unwavering, embodying the dignity of a woman who had spent decades serving justice and now demanded the same in return. As dusk gave way to night, the scene was set for a confrontation that would not only challenge one officer's assumptions, but also highlight the deep-seated issues of trust, respect, and equality. It was a moment poised on the edge of change, where silence would no longer be an option, and the truth, however uncomfortable, would demand to be heard. As the tension thickened in the cool evening air, Evelyn Carter remained seated with quiet dignity, her hands resting calmly on the steering wheel as she watched Officer David Harper hesitate before approaching her again. His steps were measured now, less aggressive than before, but the uncertainty in his eyes revealed the internal conflict he was battling. He cleared his throat and asked a question that, on the surface, seemed routine. "How long have you owned this vehicle?" Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. Her voice was steady but firm as she responded. "Since February of last year, it was certified pre-owned from a local dealership." Her straightforward reply seemed to catch him off guard, perhaps because it challenged the assumptions he had already made about her. The crowd around them grew restless, whispers rippling through the onlookers who had gathered like a silent jury. Some voices rose to her defense, reminding others that she was a judge, a respected member of the community, someone who had earned her position through years of dedication and hard work. Yet despite the mounting evidence that Evelyn was the lawful owner of the vehicle, David Harper's demeanor shifted subtly but noticeably. He was grappling with his own biases and the pressure of upholding an image of control. He fumbled over his words as he pressed further, his questions becoming tinged with a frustration that was difficult to hide. "Are you sure you can afford this car?" Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly, sensing the underlying prejudice that had infiltrated his questioning. "Is that a question you ask every driver in this neighborhood?" she shot back calmly, refusing to let the insinuation go unchallenged. Her words struck a chord with the crowd, many of whom nodded in agreement or voiced quiet support. David's jaw tightened, the weight of the situation pressed down on him from all sides. His own doubts, the scrutiny of the gathering crowd, and the unmistakable presence of cameras recording every moment. Evelyn, sensing the shift, leaned back slightly, the slight creak of her car seat the only sound breaking the heavy silence. She shared almost gently, "You don't see me, you see a stereotype. And the badge gives you permission to act on that vision, but that vision is flawed." The honesty in her voice was palpable. It cut through the tension and illuminated the deeper issues at play: prejudice, power, and the fragile nature of trust. David looked away momentarily, struggling to meet her gaze as the gravity of her words sank in. This was not just a traffic stop anymore. It was a microcosm of a larger struggle playing out across communities nationwide. The crowd's murmurs turned to supportive calls, one voice calling out, "Back off, officer, you're wrong here." Others captured the moment on their phones, the digital evidence becoming a silent witness to an encounter that many feared but few dared to confront. As the sky darkened further, the arrival of a second patrol car brought a new presence to the scene. Officer Marcy Phillips, a sharp-eyed woman whose calm authority seemed to cut through the mounting chaos. She approached swiftly, assessed the situation, and with a quiet yet firm tone urged David to let Evelyn go, signaling the beginning of a shift in the unfolding drama. Evelyn remained composed, the weight of years spent in the courtroom preparing her for moments like this. Moments where patience, resilience, and unwavering integrity were the only shield she had. The scene was set not only for the resolution of a single encounter, but for a conversation that would echo far beyond this quiet street, challenging perceptions and demanding a reckoning with the truths too often overlooked. The arrival of Officer Marcy Phillips shifted the atmosphere palpably. Her calm yet firm presence was like a balm over the simmering tension that had enveloped the street. As she stepped from her patrol car, her eyes quickly scanned the growing crowd, the flicker of phones capturing every second of the unfolding scene, before settling on Evelyn Carter's steady gaze. Marcy's voice was clear and unwavering as she addressed David Harper. "You need to clear this up. This isn't the moment to escalate things." The words hung in the air, carrying the weight of experience and authority, making it clear she was there not only to intervene, but to restore order. David's shoulders slumped slightly, the realization of the gravity of his misjudgment settling like a stone in his chest. Yet despite Marcy's intervention, the damage had been done. The whispers and murmurs among neighbors had grown louder, eyes darting nervously, and the sense of unease was unmistakable. Evelyn remained poised, her black robe a stark contrast against the casual observers, a symbol of justice standing resolute amid a scene fraught with misunderstanding and bias. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the courtroom, where she had spent countless hours upholding the law, pondering the cruel irony that the respect commanded by that robe seemed to vanish once she stepped out of the courthouse. The murmurs of the crowd crescendoed into a mix of support and disbelief, and Evelyn knew that this moment was more than just a traffic stop gone wrong. It was a reflection of the broader societal challenges that she had long witnessed from the bench. Meanwhile, David Harper lingered near his vehicle, struggling with the shifting tide of public opinion and the undeniable evidence of his mistake. The flickering red light on the phone across the street seemed to mock him, a constant reminder that his actions were being documented and scrutinized. Marcy approached him once more, her tone softer now, but still firm. "You have to recognize when to step back. This isn't about you anymore." He nodded, his mind racing through the consequences that were now inevitable, both professionally and personally. The night air grew cooler, and the crowd, now numbering more than 24, remained, unwilling to disperse until some resolution was reached. Evelyn took a deep breath, steadying herself, and slowly lowered her window a fraction, the faintest sign of concession, but a powerful gesture nonetheless. "Officer Harper," she began, her voice imbued with quiet authority, "I am requesting to leave unless you are formally detaining me." The directness of her statement, combined with the growing public presence, seemed to finally pierce through the officer's resolve. The tension was electric. Neighbors whispered stories of past injustices and hopes for change, while teenagers continued to record every detail, aware that this moment would soon be shared far beyond this street. As Evelyn smoothly stepped out of the vehicle, her robe billowing gently in the night breeze, she commanded the space with a dignity that transcended the incident. "This," she said, her eyes sweeping the silent crowd, "is what it takes for a Black woman to be heard." The words, simple yet profound, echoed in the ears of those present, imprinting a lasting message about courage, respect, and the ongoing struggle for equality. David Harper's hand drifted towards his holster once more, a reflex born of years in law enforcement. But Marcy's sharp voice cut through the air. "Don't!" The single command halted him, forcing a moment of reckoning. Evelyn met his gaze steadily, unyielding, and reminded him gently, "You're not the law. The law is written, studied, and upheld by those who have earned that right. You enforce it, but only when you remember what it truly means." The weight of her words lingered as the world around them seemed to hold its breath, witnessing not just an encounter between an officer and a judge, but a battle for dignity and justice that resonated far beyond that quiet street corner. The confrontation that night was far from over, though the world was now watching intently. Officer David Harper found himself caught between the unyielding presence of Judge Evelyn Carter and the mounting scrutiny of an increasingly aware community. As the crowd's murmurs swelled, Harper's internal conflict deepened. His years on the force had been built on instinct and training, yet this moment challenged everything he thought he knew about authority and justice. He stepped forward hesitantly, taking just a single pace toward Evelyn, his voice strained but firm. "Ma'am, I'm asking you to return to your vehicle." Evelyn didn't flinch. Her calm, measured tone cut through the tension. "Are you detaining me?" The question hung in the air, heavy and deliberate, forcing Harper to confront the truth that he had no lawful grounds to hold her. The crowd's reaction was immediate, a mixture of laughter, whispers, and rising anger directed at the officer's stubbornness. An older man muttered under his breath that Harper was grasping at straws, while a teenager holding a phone captured every second, the red recording light glowing like a beacon of accountability. Marcy Phillips, sensing the growing volatility, intervened once more, her voice low but firm. "That's enough, David. This is not going to hold. You're improvising and it's not policy." Her words reminded him that the law was clear, yet the emotional weight of the encounter made it difficult for Harper to step back. Evelyn, still standing firm, voiced what many in the crowd were thinking. "You're making up charges. That's misconduct." The tension finally broke as Harper's frustration bubbled over, his fist clenching, voice rising in a snap. "Get back in the car!" The woman live streaming from the sidelines spoke up loudly. "This man's about to arrest a judge because she made him look stupid." Evelyn took a step closer to Harper, not aggressive, but with enough presence to command attention. "Officer Harper, if you place your hands on me without cause, you'll be making a career-ending decision." The crowd erupted in protest, voices overlapping in shock and support. "Yo, you touching her now, she's a judge. Get your hands off her, man." Marcy immediately stepped between them, facing Harper head-on. "Back off, David. Let go right now." The palpable shift was undeniable. Harper released Evelyn's wrist, stepping back with lips parted, breathing uneven, clearly rattled. And Evelyn addressed the crowd. I will be filing a formal complaint and requesting the full release of all body camera and dash cam footage. I strongly recommend anyone filming tonight hold on to their videos. Her words were met with a chorus of supportive cheers, not wild, but loud enough to drown out the remnants of tension. Harper tried to regain control, but it was too late. The crowd had shifted its loyalty, and even Marcy was standing firmly with Evelyn. Marcy's quiet voice broke the moment. You good to drive, Judge? Evelyn nodded softly. I was good before this started. She slid back into her car with a composed grace, adjusted her mirror, and started the engine. The door clicked, shut quietly, a subtle but powerful sound in the thick night air. She pulled away smoothly, leaving behind a scene heavy with unspoken questions and the unmistakable feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Harper stood there, hands on hips, caught between the weight of his actions and the unforgiving glare of public judgment. Marcy finally spoke, her voice cutting through his thoughts. You just tried to detain a sitting judge over a car she owns, on a hunch you can't prove. He turned toward her, frustration barely concealed. I'm just doing my job. She responded sharply. You didn't follow the law. His gaze fell away, chewing the inside of his cheek, knowing she was right but unwilling to admit it aloud. Across the street, a voice called out, Better get ready for the lawsuit. The tension shifted from heat to anticipation. The night was far from over. Not for the department, not for David Harper, and certainly not for Judge Evelyn Carter. As dawn broke, the 4-minute live stream clip racked up hundreds of thousands of views, catapulting Judge Carter's name to trending topics alongside words like racial profiling and abuse of authority. The city's media storm was just beginning, and the repercussions would ripple far beyond that quiet street corner. As the sun rose over Columbia, South Carolina, the weight of the previous night's events lingered heavily in the air. Inside the police department, the mood was somber and tense, a stark contrast to the usual routine banter and clatter of the morning briefing room. Chief Harold Evans entered with an uncharacteristic seriousness, sliding a newspaper headline across the table that read, Judge wrongfully targeted in traffic stop. Was her robe the real threat? The headline encapsulated the complicated emotions swirling within the department and the community at large. Officer David Harper sat in the corner, avoiding eye contact, feeling the full force of silent judgment from his peers. No one said it outright, but eyes lingered longer than they should have, not only on him but also on Officer Marcy Phillips, who had dared to stand against him. The chief's voice cut through the silence. Harper, you filed your incident report. Harper responded with a quiet, yes, sir, though he knew it did not align with the body cam footage now circulating everywhere. Chief Evans continued, We're launching an internal review. You're on administrative leave effective immediately. The room remained silent except for the quiet hum of the air conditioner. This was standard protocol, but not a vote of support. Meanwhile, Judge Evelyn Carter sat in her modest kitchen, having traded her judicial robe for a comfortable sweatshirt, sipping cold coffee while her phone buzzed incessantly with messages from friends, colleagues, and news reporters. She ignored them all, focusing instead on watching the viral video unfold on her screen. The calm, dignified way she had faced the confrontation juxtaposed against the tense, uncertain posture of the officer. It was not the incident that cut deepest, but the bitter knowledge that she had always known this could happen. Her father, a retired police officer who had served with integrity decades ago, had warned her that the robe did not guarantee protection from prejudice or assumption. Her faith that the years and her achievements would shield her had been shattered. As the day progressed, Evelyn prepared for the next day's court docket with the help of her loyal clerk, Amy, a white woman in her mid-30s, who nervously approached her with a concern about whether Evelyn should appear in court after such a public incident. Evelyn's response was resolute. She would be in court, not out of fear, but because standing her ground was part of who she was. Later that evening, outside the police station, a small but determined group gathered, holding signs demanding accountability and respect, their chants a quiet echo of a broader movement. Images of Evelyn, steadfast in her robe and facing down authority, were held high like banners of justice. Across town, David Harper sat alone, packing his personal belongings into a cardboard box, the reality of his suspension sinking in. The sounds of protest and his name being called out in the streets echoed through the walls, leaving him feeling isolated, confused, and questioning the choices he had made. His thoughts drifted to his family, his wife and young daughter, and the difficult conversation he would have to have about the night that changed everything. Marcy came to check on him, offering quiet support as she acknowledged that perhaps what felt normal to him was, in fact, what needed to change. For Evelyn, the incident was not merely a personal trial. It was a reflection of the larger, systemic challenges embedded in the fabric of society. Memories from her youth flooded back. The night she was stopped as a teenager, questioned and detained simply for walking alone. Those moments had shaped her resolve, fueling a lifetime dedicated to justice and fairness. Now as a judge, she grappled with the painful truth that despite her position, she was still vulnerable to the same prejudices she fought against every day. In the days and weeks that followed, the city grappled with the story's implications. Conversations unfolded in homes, schools, and workplaces, forcing a reckoning with uncomfortable truths about race, power, and respect. The journey toward healing and change was just beginning, but one thing was clear. Neither Evelyn Carter nor David Harper would ever be the same. As the courtroom doors swung open on the day of the hearing, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and unspoken tension. Judge Evelyn Carter took her seat not as the arbiter, but as a witness, her composure steady, hands folded, embodying the quiet strength that had carried her through decades of service. David Harper entered through a side door, no longer in uniform but dressed in a navy blazer and khakis, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the previous night's events. The silence in the room was deafening. No cheers, no jeers, just the solemn recognition that what was at stake went far beyond one officer's mistake. The five-member oversight committee sat at the front, tasked with reviewing the body cam footage and officer conduct, their role procedural on paper but deeply symbolic in reality. As the video played, the raw moments unfolded again. The steady voice of Judge Carter calmly stating her identity, the tense posture of Harper with his hand near his holster, the moment when he reached for her wrist without cause. The footage paused abruptly at a critical moment, an unexplained 40-second gap that raised eyebrows and deepened suspicions. Committee Chair Vera Mitchell, a retired judge known for her fairness, addressed Harper directly, questioning the sudden loss of audio during the escalation. Harper's uncertain reply about a malfunction did little to quell the unease. Evelyn's gaze remained calm but piercing, silently reminding everyone that the badge carried not just power but profound responsibility. When it was her turn to speak, her voice was unwavering as she described the incident, not as a personal grievance but as a testament to the fragile balance between authority and justice. She reminded the committee that the system was already tilted, and that night it had tipped further, burdening her with the consequences of bias and misuse of power. The room hung on her words, understanding that this was not just about a single traffic stop, but about the dignity owed to every person, regardless of their title or color. Thanks so much for watching the whole video. If this story moved you or made you think, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support means the world.